In June 2025, the Manhattan Federal Courthouse was filled with a heavy, suffocating tension. Outside, thousands of people were waiting, and the press was stationed on every corner. Inside, the entire courtroom held its breath as the landmark trial of Sean Diddy Combs, the notorious music mogul faced with shocking charges of extortion, sex trafficking, and organized violence. Over the days leading up to the trial, witnesses painted a horrifying picture of a ruthless, manipulative empire headed by Diddy. But no one could have predicted the moment when prosecutor Maureen Comey called out the name of the next witness, Rihanna. The entire room fell silent. The global music icon, billionaire entrepreneur, and woman who had been silent in the face of countless rumors, now stood in court, eyes as cold as ice, strutting with elegance and majesty. Diddy sat at the defendant's table, unable to hide his tension. His head was bowed, his hands clenched, as if his own instincts told him that the empire he had built over decades was about to collapse in a single afternoon. Rihanna stepped onto the witness stand. Her voice rang out, clear but slightly trembling. "I stand here to expose the truth that I have buried for 16 years. Sean Combs is more than just a violent extortionist. He is the mastermind behind an international criminal organization that uses the music industry as a cover for manipulation." Unlike anyone who has testified, Rihanna doesn't talk about drug parties or the usual threats. She accuses Diddy of forcing her to have sex, secretly implanting biomonitoring devices in young artists using advanced AI technology to manipulate minds, and running an international human trafficking network with ties to underground political organizations. In her hand is a chilling piece of evidence, a deactivated nano implant removed from her body. The room freezes. "I was scared, but today I will not be silent any longer," she says, her eyes burning with determination. She describes meeting Diddy in 2005 when she was 17 and had just signed to Def Jam Recordings. Coming from Barbados to the United States, she saw Diddy as a beacon of light. But in 2009, at a private party in Beverly Hills, he invited her to talk about a new contract. When she arrived, it was just Diddy and 2 bodyguards. "He told me I had to prove my loyalty," Rihanna says, her voice cracking. "I didn't understand what that meant until I was forced into a room. He raped me and told me that if I didn't comply, my career would be over." She describes feeling like a suffocation, where all my youthful dreams were ripped away in one night. Diddy then threatened, "If you tell, no one will believe you. I have people everywhere." But that was just the beginning of the nightmare. In 2010, Rihanna said, she witnessed the young singer Jada Miles, a talent recently signed to Bad Boy Records, walking out of Diddy's private room in a Los Angeles studio. Jada was staggering, her eyes were blank, her clothes were disheveled. She told me she had to have sex to protect her contract. A year later, Jada disappeared from the music industry, and then I heard she died in a car accident. Mysterious. Rihanna paused for a beat. "I knew it wasn't an accident. Diddy has a way of silencing people forever." She went on to reveal a more horrifying detail. Diddy had implanted bio-nano devices into the bodies of young artists. Devices that could track location, heart rate, and basic emotional responses, and transmit biological data to a server in Switzerland. Rihanna said that in 2015, after a series of lavish parties and recurring nightmares, she discovered a strange scar on her neck, a small one that wouldn't heal as it should. The feeling of being watched became more and more pronounced. By 2017, she went to a doctor in London, and the results were chilling. Microscopic devices had been implanted inside her without her knowledge. "It wasn't just a tracking device," the doctor said. "It was like a living experiment, sending data to an external source." She immediately underwent surgery. The removed device, a small metal ball the size of a pinhead, was kept for years afterward in a safe in Barbados as evidence of what she had experienced and what others never knew. The courtroom erupted in a gasp of alarm. A juror covered his mouth, too shocked to look away from Rihanna. Diddy, pale-faced, turned to whisper to attorney Brian Steele, as if trying to figure out how to handle the unexpected. At that moment, prosecutor Maureen Comey stepped forward, her eyes as sharp as a knife. "What evidence do you have to support your story?" Without a moment's hesitation, Rihanna held up the glass tube containing the small, cold object, a nano metal that glinted in the courtroom lights like an invisible weapon from an unprepared era. "This," she said, "is what he used to turn us into puppets." Rihanna's testimony was no longer just about Diddy. It opened the door to a murky system where the spotlight of fame was just a disguise for the pain of manipulation. The atmosphere in the courtroom became tense once again as Rihanna continued to expose the depths of Sean Diddy Combs' dark empire, a network of mind manipulation powered by artificial intelligence. Rihanna testified that at a secret studio in New York, she met a woman named Malik Carter, whom Diddy coldly introduced as an AI consultant. Carter was not a doctor or a psychologist, but the brains behind a behavioral monitoring system that used advanced artificial intelligence software to collect and analyze personal data from artists' phones, social media, and even implants. The result is a hyper-detailed psychological profile that can expose every hidden vulnerability. Rihanna recounts the case of Tara Lynn, a young singer who had just signed with Bad Boy. The AI analysis showed that Tara had a fear of failure, an obsession with abandonment, and a thirst for recognition. Those weaknesses were exploited. Carter and Diddy's team made Tara believe that if she did not comply, her career would collapse. The special performances in Dubai, according to Rihanna, were actually traps disguised as stage lights and fame. Tara was forced to meet VIP guests, people who, according to Rihanna, had connections to shady international organizations where artists became high-end commodities in underground deals. A year later, Tara was gone. All that was left was a name erased from the music industry. "They told me she was in psychiatric care in Switzerland," Rihanna says, tears welling up in her eyes. "But I knew. It was a secret prison run by Diddy. I tried to reach out, but Tara was gone." The tipping point came in 2019, at a major fashion event in Paris. Diddy approached her, calm but menacing. "You think you can escape? I have your heart rate data." Rihanna was stunned. She checked her phone and found a strange app running in the background, one she had never downloaded. The app was silently sending location data to a server in Hong Kong every few minutes. When the tech experts investigated, they confirmed the app was coded to link to the bioimplant she had removed. It wasn't an app, it was a digital shackle. "Diddy doesn't just want power," Rihanna said, each word like a knife. "He wants us to live in a psychological hell, a place where the fear never goes away." The jury was silent. Some gasped, others shook their heads in utter bewilderment. The room was frozen by the unbelievable testimony, but told in the voice of a woman who had suffered, who had survived, and who was now standing up to light the darkness. If Rihanna's previous testimony had silenced the courtroom, what followed left everyone frozen. With a piercing gaze and a firm voice, she bluntly accused Sean Diddy Combs of being the leader of an international human trafficking network disguised as a global music project. According to Rihanna, this system operates under the glitz of international tours, performances, or creative collaborations. But behind the stage lights and VIP tickets is a dark network where young artists are transported to private clubs scattered across Eastern Europe, the Middle East, and Asia, where they are forced to serve special customers. She recounts an event in Dubai in 2013. Amid laughter and music, she saw Diddy chatting privately with a man, Sergei Volkov, a famously wealthy Russian businessman, but also suspected of being a human trafficker. The conversation revolved around a concert in Moscow, but Rihanna, with her wary intuition and experience living in the shadows, overheard the most important part. It was no ordinary concert. "It was a coordinated operation," she said, "a plan to take Malik Carter, a young rapper, to a VIP club where he would be forced to serve high-ranking figures." Malik, according to Rihanna, fought back. He refused to go to Moscow, and a few months later, a car flipped over on a Los Angeles freeway. Malik Carter was seriously injured and fell into a coma. "It was no accident. I knew Diddy was behind it," Rihanna declared, her voice cracking with anger, but her eyes as steady as stone. Then she mentioned Zoe Harper, a promising young singer who was sponsored by Diddy in 2014. Zoe was forced to attend events in Bangkok, places that were advertised as music exchanges, but were actually stages for wild parties with clients from tycoons, politicians, and even the mafia. A year later, Zoe disappeared without a trace. No one could contact her. And then, Rihanna received devastating news. Zoe was taken to an artist camp in Qatar, essentially an underground prison, where artists are locked up and monitored like prisoners, used for retraining, or to serve the dark needs of the powerful. The story doesn't end there. Rihanna claims Diddy works directly with Volkov and Swiss organizations that develop and distribute nanobio implants. These devices are secretly inserted into artists' bodies, sometimes right after private parties, to monitor every step, every heartbeat, every change in emotion. All data is transferred to a server system deep in Swiss data centers, safe, secure, unsuspecting. They turn us into technological slaves, Rihanna said. Puppets living in the limelight, but actually having their every breath controlled. She then calmly took out a small test tube containing a blood sample. In it, independent experts found microscopic traces of nanobiomaterials, tiny pieces of metal designed to be mixed into human blood. The courtroom fell silent, then erupted into a chorus of panicked murmurs. The jury looked at Rihanna as if they were confronting an undeniable truth, that what was unfolding was not just a criminal case, but the unfolding of a modern-day system of slavery, fueled by music, technology, and power. With the evidence in hand, Rihanna was no longer a victim. She had become the key witness to an underworld that Hollywood had kept silent about for too long. A world where fame was a gilded cage, where freedom was sold for $1 million contract, and where young souls were bound in invisible chains. The courtroom held its breath as Rihanna took the stand, holding a small object, almost invisible in the overhead light, but its weight silenced the court. "This," she said, her voice calm but filled with suppressed anger, "is what was implanted in my body. A nanoparticle, smaller than a grain of sand, but powerful enough to control an entire life." Rihanna presented a blood sample to the court containing microscopic traces of metal. Undeniable evidence of a biological implant. But what stunned everyone was the nano device surgically removed from her neck at a specialized clinic in London, preserved in a sterile glass tube. Its size is only the tip of a needle, but its uses are not small. This device can record, locate in real time, monitor heart rate, emotions, and transmit all biological data to a server located in Dubai. Rihanna paused, her eyes fixed on the defendant. "He implanted it in me. At a private party, I clearly remember the wine tasting strangely bitter. After that, I lost consciousness." When she woke up, she found a thin scar on her neck. Not large, not painful, but leaving a strange, invasive feeling. For years afterward, she said she felt never truly alone. Strange calls, text messages that knew where she would be, a creeping sense of unease that seemed to follow her like a shadow. Medical experts were called in to confirm the device was part of an AI system developed by Malik Carter, the artificial intelligence network Rihanna had once mentioned. The device not only collected information, but also interacted with the brain, using biological data to manipulate emotions, triggering fear, paranoia, and even pleasure, a deliberate tool of psychological manipulation. "This is not surveillance," Rihanna concluded, her voice icy. "This is control, and I am a living experiment." The jury, some trembling, some sitting frozen. Some reporters put down their pens, unable to continue writing. And Sean Diddy Combs sat there, staring into the glass tube as if facing the collapse of the dynasty he once ruled. The courtroom seemed to sink into a nightmare as Rihanna, her voice trembling but her eyes determined, entered the most shocking testimony. The truth about that fateful night in 2009 and how Diddy used sexual violence as a tool of enslavement. "He didn't just rape me," she choked out. "He used it as an invisible chain, locking me in fear for years." Rihanna recounted the terrifying moment. After waking from a coma caused by the anesthetic in Diddy's drink, she discovered that she had not only been raped, but also secretly filmed by a hidden camera in a luxurious hotel room where the sparkling lights were just a mask for the mental terror. A few days later, she received an anonymous call, accompanied by a video recording of the entire incident. Diddy's voice came from the recording device. "If you don't do it, the whole world will see your true face." From then on, Rihanna lived in extreme fear. She said that in 2010, Diddy forced her to attend an event in Moscow, where she was asked to meet VIP guests, powerful men sitting behind velvet curtains and wearing fake, kind smiles. Rihanna refused. She fled to Barbados in the night, desperate to find a way out. But she couldn't. A few weeks later, at the family's Bridgetown mansion, an anonymous envelope arrived. Inside was a copy of the rape video with a scrawled, chilling note, "You know the consequences." But Diddy didn't just use physical violence. He used artificial intelligence as an emotional weapon, tapping into the deepest human anxiety: family. Rihanna claims that the AI system run by Malik Carter impersonated relatives, sending terrifying messages to threaten the artists. They received messages that appeared to be from their mothers, fathers, siblings, saying that if they didn't obey, their loved ones would die. And we believed it because it was all too real. In 2017, Rihanna fell victim too. She received a text message from a phone number that matched her mother's, a familiar voice in her head. It simply read, "If you tell, I'll die." She dropped the phone. Her legs went weak. She believed it. Part of her wanted to stay silent forever. But her survival instinct kicked in. Rihanna hired an international cybersecurity team. After days of tracking, they discovered the horrifying truth. The message had been sent from a server in Diddy's personal data system. "He didn't need to touch us to paralyze us," she said. "He broke our hearts with the love he had for our loved ones." The jury now didn't just listen, they hung on to every word, as if they were witnessing a chilling conspiracy engineered by technology, lies, and power. A conspiracy that doesn't just want to possess the body, it wants to wipe out the will and courage of an entire generation of artists. In the dimming light of the auditorium, Rihanna is no longer just a whistleblower. She is the voice of the souls who have been silenced. And now, no one can silence her again. When Rihanna spoke in the final part of her testimony, the courtroom seemed to sink into a state of shock with no way out. Because now, the charges no longer revolve around entertainment or technology manipulation, they extend to another level of hell, a conspiracy to manipulate global politics. Sean Combs is not just a music mogul, Rihanna said, her eyes boring into the jury. He is a pawn in a global game where artists are used as flags to hide human trafficking, crime, and power. She recounted that in 2018, at a lavish art event in Qatar, dubbed by the media as a global creative conference, she witnessed Diddy having a private meeting with Amir Khalid, a Middle Eastern official suspected of being a covert terrorist financier. They discussed a musical project spanning Africa and the Middle East, but that same night, Rihanna heard from Diddy's close bodyguard, "The target is Malik Carter and Zoe Harper. Bring them to Riyadh. The club is for VIPs only." "We are not artists," Rihanna said. "We are commodities in an underground global supply chain. And that chain is controlled by technology." Rihanna accuses Diddy of using bioimplants not just to track artists, but to directly report their behavior, location, and biometrics in every disguised human trafficking operation. She recounts a cold night in Paris in 2019. During a major fashion event, Diddy walked up to her, leaned close to her ear, and said in a voice that was as calm as an invitation, "You know what I can do to any government that wants you gone." A week later, her home in Barbados was broken into overnight. The safe was blown open. Personal documents, hard drives containing information about the implant, everything was gone. But Rihanna was one step ahead. Blood samples, nano chips, and a copy of medical records were safely hidden in a safe in Sweden under the name of an independent human rights organization. "I lived in hell," Rihanna said, voice trailed off in emotion, "with the flashbulbs in my face and the darkness following my every step. but I still have a voice, and I will use it for those who can no longer speak." The courtroom fell silent. Some jurors shed tears. Those in the audience held hands as if to keep warm amid the chill of the truth. Because Rihanna's testimony was no longer a mere personal accusation. It was a declaration of war against a dark network of power that permeated politics, technology, and art. A warning to the world that sometimes the most glamorous of things are the curtains that conceal the quietest of crimes. The gavel came down, resounding in the courtroom like the crack of a world that had been thought safe. Manhattan Federal Court accepted Rihanna's testimony and all the evidence. Implants, blood samples, location data, victim lists, and scattered pieces of a nightmare that could no longer be hidden. Attorney Brian Steele pulled out his final card, accusing Rihanna of orchestrating, fabricating a whole international conspiracy scenario. But the court didn't buy it, nor did the public. And the silence of the other victims, on which Diddy had staked his claim, is beginning to crack. Prosecutor Maureen Comey spoke briefly after the hearing. "We're not concluding anything today. We're just opening a door and letting people in." Where that door leads, no one knows. On social media, the storm was unprecedented. News of the trial split the world, with one side hailing Rihanna as a survivor and the other accusing her of being a pawn in a power game. Rihanna is the only one brave enough to speak out. She's part of a much bigger plan. Diddy was just the first pawn to fall. Who else is behind this curtain? But to intimidate. The court is scheduled to announce the verdict in August 2025, but even if the prison sentence is permanent for many, this is not the end, just the first crack. An empire has collapsed. But the system is still there, quietly, observing. And people begin to wonder, has Rihanna just won, or has she entered a bigger battle, where the enemy is no longer just a man? Don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications to follow the next developments in the case. In the next video, we'll reveal more names and analyze why they could shake both Hollywood and Washington.